recruiter in the Free State, who also passed on. More and more comrades has passed on. The organizers in Rustenburg, the coordinator in Rustenburg. Now of late, we lost the deputy chairperson of Matlosane. I was in Matlosane yesterday attending his memorial service. We don't know who is going to be the next, but it seems that 2020, 2021 are hard times for our revolutionary movement, the National Union of Mine Workers. I will therefore call upon cadres where they are gathered just to have a moment of silence in remembrance of our beloved comrades who had lost their lives. Thank you very much, comrades, and welcome to this August gathering where we come in to consolidate the demands of our workers about conditions of employment and increase of salaries. But let me first thank you, leadership of the National Union of Mine Workers, for the gallant work that you have done in the past. Last year, since this problem of coronavirus hit the shores of the country, we have never abandoned our responsibility of representing the members on the ground. We have always been there for our members, first and foremost to negotiate for their increase of salaries. We have been negotiating on coal and other related sectors for the increase of salaries and for adjustment of conditions of employment as the primary responsibility of a trade union. We have done that, and we want to thank leaders that were in the forefront of negotiations and thank the branches that respected their chief negotiators in those negotiations, because we have shown that we have structures that are able to do the work according to the mandate of our members on the ground. Comrades, we are facing a major problem of coronavirus. I have spoken to the fact that we lost leaders within the union. It is not only leaders. 2 weeks ago, it was counted more than 200 workers in general in mining industry, and we have also lost workers in construction and energy and metal. So this coronavirus is causing major problems. The vaccine has come. There was contestation about the first vaccine that came to the country. Our local scientists were of the view that, according to their research, it is not up to speed to be able to deal with the variant that we have. Now there's a Johnson & Johnson, which scientists have confirmed that it will do better. We have, through your representation as the National Union of Mine Workers, worked with other labor movements in the country and also with the Mineral Council to argue that workers must be put on the second phase of the vaccination. And that has been agreed by the Commanding Council of Coronavirus. You will be vaccinated once the first phase has passed on. As to who will pay for the vaccination, I want to be very clear that we have urged the industry, the mining industry, that they have to pay for that, and medical aids will be also catering for those who have medical aids. But we did not only represent those who are workers. We also urge that the mining communities must be included. We are still engaging in talks with construction industry and energy for those workers also to be included in the second phase of vaccination. So we are pushing, comrade, that you must be included so that if this vaccination, by the grace of God, it will make a difference, it must benefit our members and their communities and their families. Comrades, this particular Congress is going to look into the demands. As you understand that according to Tomoski Mikhail, one of the Soviet theoreticians who actually coined the theory of workers being the advanced detachment of the working class. It means that you, as workers, organized labor, you are on the forefront of waging the struggle of the working class in general. You must understand your position as the leaders of workers on the ground and the workers in general, comrades, that you are not just ordinary organized labor, but according to Tomoski, you are at our advanced detachment of the working class. You are in the forefront of leading the struggle of oppression and exploitation against capitalism to advance for the betterment of conditions of workers. That's your responsibility. Your responsibility as leadership, from regions, from branches, from everywhere. It is not to sleep with management in the same blanket. It is not to sell out the interests of the workers. It is to put the agenda of the workers at all material times as a first priority to do what is good. That's why there is a proverb in the West African countries which says, no matter how hot is your water from the well, it cannot cook your rice. That means no matter how we put this, the slogan of Viva what, if practically we don't represent workers according to the constitution of NUM and according to Marxist-Leninism theory of the fact that the trade union is the primary school of politics, according to Vladimir Lenin. This is this primary school of socialism. That's why Krishani said, socialism is not about big ideas or big theory. It is about water to the advantage, clean water, electricity, health care, and shelter. These are the basics of socialism. And these are the basics that you, as the leadership, you must be sure that wherever you organize, workers have medical aid first, workers have an increase of salaries, workers are catered for in every aspect of human dignity. There is what is called the Declaration of Human Rights, which is a document that was coined by a man called Thomas Paine in 1773 in the United States of America. First, he called it the Declaration of the Right of Man. Man should have the rights, first and foremost. And those rights, we demand them from the oppressors. And the oppressors are the capitalists, who are always looking to make more profit and exploiting workers to enrich themselves. Therefore, comrades, we are calling upon you, both in construction, energy, and also subcontracting, which is the most element of oppression, in the mining to make sure that we always push for the change of conditions of employment for our members. Somewhere during the struggle for workers in the international platform of the Communist Party, when Lenin looked into the colonial struggle of workers, where the Communist parties were weak, where we can't win majority, we have to moot complaints. No one is allowed to talk. Let's put all of our cadres under moot. Lenin came with the slogan, coined it the National Democratic Revolution, a midway between capitalism and socialism. The progressive nationalist parties across the world were urged to work with the communist parties, like what the ANC is doing together with the Communist Party and the representative of workers through COSATU. Therefore, there's a two-stage theory of the revolution, which is the National Democratic Revolution, where we must not waste a lot of time as leaders of the Congress movement to move to socialism. I want to stress the fact that countries like China, countries like Vietnam, and other countries have not spent years in the National Democratic Revolution. There's something wrong here with us in South Africa. Why do we stay in the National Democratic Revolution for more than 20 years and we can't move to socialism? Comrades, somebody said socialism, we cannot move it through the decision of conferences. But I want to argue to say that the decision must be taken by the Congress movement, that include the component of alliance, to make analysis of the present National Democratic Revolution, where it is catering for the general working class and the workers in particular, and agree about a new program to move. Because if we are to say it cannot be decided in Congress, where will you decide it? Because even the National Democratic Revolution, it was decided in the Congress of Tanzania in 1969, that the party, the ANC, and the then South African Congress of Trade Unions agreed that they adopted the National Democratic Revolution as an agenda of the working class and the communities in life in South Africa. So when people say we can't decide that in congresses, what is the reason of saying that? I think as workers, we must wake up and say, for us to advance forward to socialism, we have to have a sort of a decision, the same decision that was adopted in 1955 in the Congress of the People, to adopt the Freedom Charter. We need such a decision that all progressive forces, the leftists, must meet and say, yes, the National Democratic Revolution has done its part. We have clean water for many people, we have provided housing, we have provided electricity and other necessities like healthcare and so on. But what about the structural economic change? Why even today, Oppenheimer own 100% of diamonds in South Africa? Why should the land be owned 100% by the white farmers? Why should everything, engineering companies, insurances, banks, and every monopoly of control of means of production are on the hands of the few people? That is something that we have to ask ourselves. And we must adopt a progressive resolution which will be a broader political and economic program to move from the little money. The little money that the government got from tax, it has been severely affected by coronavirus because most of the companies have closed down and workers are not working. So the tax revenue has gone down. So the only solution is that decision must be taken by the leftists through the Congress to say that enough is enough. We need a share from our mineral. We need a share from our agriculture. We need a share from our insurances. We need a share from the banks. We need a share from everywhere where we create wealth. Comrades, it is only a politician conscious of the working class that can be able to make a shop steward on the ground to understand his role. Therefore, we are calling upon you to make sure that you read political material, especially you read Lenin, because Lenin is the man who implemented communism after reading the theory of Marx through the Capital, the great book that Marx constructed. It is not yet late, comrade, that we can move for another stage of a revolution in the country. We fear that when some opportunists stage some protest across the country, one time we'll wake up and one demagogue will sway people from the leadership of the alliance to his own leadership. In fact, you can agree within the workers' structure, we also have such demagogues. We have some demagogues even within political stage who always make a lot of slogans of socialism, but their parties are not grounded on the ideological of Marx and Lenin. Comrade, I don't want to waste your time. I just want to say to you that please, people are leaving the union, and it is because we are not doing enough. Sometimes our differences make people to leave the union. Sometimes we don't give the people, the members, the right to elect the leadership of their choice. And that makes workers to see our trade union as a trade union that does not belong to them, because the leadership that is there has not been elected by them. Let us correct our behavior, make sure that the workers themselves are giving us mandate to do everything for themselves, because we are not paramount chiefs. Even paramount chiefs, they take mandates from their communities. Comrades, I have never heard the apologies being read. If apologies have been read, maybe my mind was slipped. But I want to announce my apology. I'm not well. I'm going to see the doctor now. But I have recently been testing corona. I was negative, but I cannot guarantee it because I have a lot of pains in my back. Let's continue this Congress with a spirit of revolution, with a spirit of collectiveness, with a spirit of aspiring to reach socialism in our lifetime. Amandla!
Well, thank you very much, Comrade President. It is unfortunate that if you are threatened by your pains, you must quickly leave, because I'm working next to you. You will cause me a problem. I will call them to bring a sanitizer so that they sanitize here, because you suspect some cells. Please, General Secretary, confirm with the doctor if he's present. On a serious note, Comrade, the podium deserves to have a sanitizer, which of course I know you hear me wherever you are, to bring one. Having said that, Comrade, thank you very much for the aspiring opening remarks, Comrade President. Don't be threatened by the pain. I can be like somebody who said, if you believe, just tell the pain to leave you so that the conference proceeds. That pain will go. Just tell the pain to say, you are one pain. I confirmed with the President of the Federation, Comrade Zingiswa Losi, that immediately the President finished his opening remarks, the President of the Federation, in terms of the program, she is going to give us a message of support. Comrade President, wherever you have connected, the delegation of your firstborn child, the National Union of Mine Workers, are listening to you from wherever you are. The podium, Comrade President, Zingiswa, Losi, it is yours. Thank you very much. I'm releasing the President to go and see the doctor, because if somebody believes that doctors can help him, I'm a boxes aware. Comrade President Zingiswa Losi, the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DP. Allow me, as he is walking away, to greet and recognize the President of the National Union of Mine Workers, President Joseph Montisetse, the collective national leadership of NUM, COSATU unions, which one had assumed that they would be part of this gathering, and also having assumed that the Alliance Mass Democratic Movement would also be here, trade union leaders, the leadership of NUM from the regions that are here. Greetings to all comrades. Sithi xa sibulisa ke ngoku sithi siyacamagusha, siyathokozisa kuni nonke ezinkokheli zami. Comrades, COSATU LOBs extends sincere gratitude to the National Union of Mine Workers for the invitation to this very important gathering of mine workers and allied industries that you are organizing. As the President has done in his opening remarks, allow us to join the whole working world in mourning the loss of a tireless fighter and leader, Comrade David Siponzi, the late General Secretary of this giant union. Comrades, in the entire working class formation, we have suffered a loss we can't recover from easily, as we did with the SAMU General Secretary and the President of SAMU, whom we also lost during this pandemic. Comrades, this was felt throughout the Federation and globally, and as COSATU, we say, may their souls continue to rest in power, and we shall never forget them. We do not seek also to take away your time on formalities, as we are here for the big issues of the moment and for all times in this movement in terms of the bargaining that we're here for. We congratulate you as NUM leadership for you hosting this important gathering and event to strategize on how best to advance workers' interest in the mining sector. During this crucial and uncertain period, with effective bargaining, be it the crux of the matter. The worth, as the President has said, of any union is its ability to get the best deal for its members and the working class in general. It is its ability to know when to strike, when to retreat, and when to derive the most from employer, being the surplus that is generated by workers themselves. Now, comrades, COSATU National Office Bearers, on the instructions of the Central Executive Committee, are advancing very hard the outcomes of our collective bargaining, organizing, and campaigns conference. And these are clear on what is to be done in the period for workers in general. We are clear, comrades, that the following are non-negotiable. One, it is organizing, recruiting, and servicing of workers. It is indispensable and a fundamental condition for any union, more importantly, a COSATU union. That worker and political education particularly on the political economy on capitalism, theory and philosophy of the working class, and history and struggles of the working class, as it has been alluded to by President Joe. We have been very clear that policy, research, and other necessary technical skills for trade union movement, particularly in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the workplace, and the whole landscape in which we operate, are important for us to deal with. So these are not mere learnings, comrades, but the essence of what makes an outstanding, capable, and well-capacitated trade union movement ready and able to lead workers to the future of sustained and effective bargaining. And we are proud of the glorious history and struggles waged by the National Union of Mine Workers, the cornerstone of our revolution. Comrades, this union must be proud that it produced a number of leaders, cadres, and activists that went on to become the bedrock of this revolution. That was not an accident. It was the quality of organization, of education and cadreship development, as well as the sophistry in the boardroom. Hence, the massive victories for workers in this and related sectors that you are organizing. We also wish to take this opportunity, leadership, to reinforce the importance of the need to integrate fully all the other sectors of the value chain that you are organizing, including the metal workers, construction, energy. In this regard, we want to say that the process of integrating workers from LIMOSA into NUM is critical to stabilize our approach to organizing this sector and building the giant union we have always been as the National Union of Mine Workers. Comrades, the NUM has stood the test of time. Before Marikana and the emergence of this NUM has been through the thickest of forest, from the days of J.B. Marx and Moses Kotane, the days of the African Mine Workers Union. The thunders and roars of the giants have been felt. So we are in the middle of one of the most critical battles of our times, the battle against gender-based violence, patriarchy, and sexism, which are tearing our society apart as predators feed on the vulnerability of the girl child. On the vulnerability of the girl child, the working class women, and the women in general leadership. This is our war too. We must not assume that it is a war that belongs to a women's structure in the union or in a gender desk in the federation. There is none of them that it is their sole responsibility as women leaders. It is for all of us to fight the scourge of gender-based violence. As we say in our country, that we are faced with pandemic of COVID. Another pandemic is gender-based violence, and we can only win it when we all work together. Collective bargaining is under attack, comrades. Capital is on the offensive, and the primary entry front is the National Treasury, which is unequivocally about its frontline defense of austerity and the neoliberal policies, including imposing these on state-owned entities and throughout our economy. We have heard the announcements that have been made by the National Treasury, pronouncing, when we deal with the public sector, that in the next 4 years there shall be no increment before even a round of negotiations has taken place. And we have seen how the private sector has responded equally to what has been displayed by our own government. And they have followed suit in denying workers what is rightfully theirs, in undermining already existing collective bargaining agreements. So once again, leadership, we must reaffirm the principal ethos of our revolutionary morality, the standards which set us apart from the rest of society as revolutionaries and as agents of the socialist future we are striving for. We remain clear that no amount of politicking must justify and hide corruption and abuse of public resources. We have seen great revolutions bowing to the evils and weaknesses of personalized accumulation, comrades, in the name of the masses and the revolution. As we have seen rampant looting on public resources and sabotage of national defense. We have also seen the tearing apart of national rules or constitution to serve the factionalist interests of individuals using hollow phrases and slogans. We must be in the front line, proclaiming loudly, comrades, that not in our name shall that happen. And when the president spoke about this, and I thought, leadership, that part of what we must talk about as we move towards the Central Committee of the Federation and the National Congress is the decolonization of our education system and the education curriculum. Because in as much as our kids are marching on the streets demanding free education, they shall continue to do so even next year, for as long as what the president was alluding to has not changed the structure of our economy. The kind of education curriculum that they are fighting for leaves them unemployed when they graduate. We are impatient with corruption, but for as long as the capitalist system is in place, it breeds corruption. Because the majority does not have and the minority have, and therefore the little that the majority is scrambling upon, it is when you find individuals fighting for what they think they are entitled to, using public office instead of demanding what is rightfully ours as the majority Africans in this country. For as long as the media is not decolonized, whatever progressive decisions that we're coming across or we're coming up with will not find expression and be heard, because the media is controlled by the very same system to perpetuate its own interest. So when we are in the time of the fourth industrial revolution, we should therefore use our own platforms that are progressive to ensure that we multiply the message that we want South Africa to hear on how we are going to ensure that the liberation that we fought for and the freedom that we fought for, we begin to realize it in our lifetime. that the mineral resources that we're endowed with, as the President was saying, do not leave the shores of this country. They get listed to the New York Stock Exchange in trillions of dollars, leaving South Africans still languishing in poverty. We are preparing as a federation, comrades, for provincial congresses, provincial gender conferences, and ultimately, as I've said, the Central Committee of COSATU, which is our midterm evaluation conference in between congresses. Comrades, this is momentous and creates a unique opportunity for mine workers, as all other workers organized under COSATU, to reassert a new path of transformation and advancement of the national democratic revolution in the conditions we find ourselves. We're in the middle of a storm, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has taken so long, and the front lines of the capitalist crisis on workers and the poor. Now, MUM has a very rich system of support for mine workers in personal distress and suffering, which is a wealth of knowledge and experience we can and should all learn from. The coverage, comrade, has helped workers to feel protected from the storms, the snows, the heat waves, and heavy rains of the different seasons. From the bursaries that you have to funeral covers, and the MDA that supports workers long after their retirement. These are the flagships of workers' sacrifices and the roots of the true social solidarity economy. This is a state must learn in order to protect the poor from the calamities of nature and others of varying forms. And we want you to always acknowledge that you are and have set an example. But comrades, this did not come easy. It was the battles fought in the workplace, in the boardrooms, and the overall political and economic struggles against apartheid itself. The lessons being, as we enter into the new round of negotiation in our various sectors, starting with mining, we must be organizationally and theoretically ready to wage and win the war. This sector is largely male and black, but we must always fight the transformation battles and the challenges faced by women workers as part of the working class struggle against any and all forms of equality. Comrades, we seek to make a rough overview of the world we are in and what are the implications of the changing balance of power, with imperialism still at the center of all the primary problems humanity faces, including inequality, war, hunger, poverty, racism, and violence. And as I've said, capitalism breeds corruption, it breeds poverty, inequality. Poverty, it breeds patriarchy. We are all facing a global climate catastrophe that will not just affect those who caused it or the imperialists, but it will affect all of us throughout the world. We are already seeing, comrades, and feeling the effects of a climate disaster that won't spare anyone in any part of the world. This is the cost of global imperialism, an accumulation system based only on greed and self-interest than the common good and the future of humanity. And towards that end, we also pledge our full solidarity leadership with workers and the people of the African continent who are suffering from all sorts of diseases, dehumanizing poverty, unemployment, conflict, and the pains of terrifying underdevelopment. We further make it clear that the struggles for democracy and development are our struggles wherever they happen to be. Hence, our inseparability from these, because workers are not a nation, but we are a class. So what affects a worker in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, in Venezuela, affects all of us. We are not divided by nations because we are a class. Now, we want to say, as I'm ending, we wish strength to the NUM and the working class as we go out to defend and advance the core interests of the workers in this sector and prepare for the same in other sectors too. Comrades, we all are in the trenches and never feel alone. We are whenever you are. We are together in losses and in gains, in pains and in joys, as well as in building the new future together. We wish you a successful collective bargaining conference, and we hope that this conference resolution will also give a clear direction to the Federation as we move towards our provincial conferences, our gender conferences, our central committee, and including our national conference in 2022. Thank you very much, President, and I wish you all the best. Thanks, Leadership.
Comrade President, we finally took a decision to have a sometizer and also agreed that we must put our masks on. In all the boardrooms, everywhere where you are, comrades, find the room service people, find our cleaners, let them make sure that everything that you use in sharing, it is taken care of, and please put on your masks. I am calling upon now the Acting General Secretary to deal with the issue of the role of collective bargaining in protecting workers' interests and the poor. None other than William Mabapa.
Yeah, comrades, Amanda. Amanda.
Aweko.
Wethu.
We
Amandla.
do.
Wethu. Amandla. Yeah, comrades, without waste of time, I want to express that we are behind time. I'm going to do what most of you knows me, that I'm not good in doing it. I'm sure all of you knows that if I stay here, you are expecting me to be in many hours. I will try my best to gallop. Comrade Aaron, can you expand in terms of a presentation? There is an area where you can put that to be, it's too small, others may not see it. Can you expand it? That it must be big. And go to the first page. Comrade Aaron. Comrade Chegupi. Can you go to that laptop where Comrade Aaron is? Where the presentation is. There is something that expands that presentation slide. Please, quickly. So, comrade, while they are working on the expansion of the slides, I tried my best to send the slides to all the regions, all the staff, and then I expect that in the regions, you have got WhatsApp groups. I've tried to send that to the NEC WhatsApp group with the purpose that they will send to all the delegates who are part of this gathering or this conference. So my role, comrade, is just to put a flash as to what is the purpose of this collective bargaining. And the issues that I will deal with is a background, the ILO Convention, the role of collective bargaining in ILO definition and NUM definition, both the purpose and the mission of collective bargaining, the collective bargaining as a right, and using collective bargaining to advance workers' interest, and the decline of trade unions, membership and gains and reversal, and the conclusion. So, comrade, in terms of the socio-economic reality, workers do not own the means of production. Workers sell their labor to the employer, and they do not get proportional pay of the labor that they are selling. And this is characterized as a relationship of super exploitation. So, and that exploitation, comrades, has got a friend called inequality. Both friends of inequality and exploitation, that is our employers are exercising on us, deny us the right of fairness to share the means of production. And that is the premise where this conference must deliberate on it. And that deepens the triple oppression, comrades, that, comrade, can you move with me? I'm in page 3. So I'm in page 3, you just put the screen and leave it. And when I read, maybe I'll tell you first that I'm going to which page. I'm on page 3. I'm on page 3, comrade Aaron. Comrade Chegupi, can you assist me? Please. Yes. Comrade, I said I'm on page 3. Yeah, comrades, go to page 4. Yeah, according to Max, comrade, labor power at work becomes a component of capital under conditions of capitalism. And according to Max again, labor power becomes a commodity. And as the workers, we sell that commodity for us to be paid. And that means that, comrade, we have to be paid a wage or a salary because we have sold our labor. And can you go to page 5, comrade? Let us be paid. It is late. Page 5. Comrade, again, according to Max, labor power at work becomes a component of capital under conditions of capitalism. Is page 4, comrade. I'm sorry, it's me who didn't move on my that. According to Max, during working time, the workers does actual labor as a producing goods and services, and capitalism or our employers sell those and obtain what is called surplus value. But the wages paid to the workers are lower than the value of the goods and the services they produce for capitalists, which is unfair. And according to Max again, this constitutes exploitation, and we should use collective bargaining and wage negotiations to reclaim better pay and working conditions from this surplus value, to advance the better pay and the livelihoods of our members in mining, energy, construction, and metal industry. And then, according to NUM comrades, that is what we call reclaim, or what we can call cloud back, should be the profound outcome of this conference. We are saying the purpose of this conference must be to reclaim or to cloud back on that profound of this conference according to the Max definition of exploitation. Can we go to page 6? You are already in page 6. Good. Very fast. And then, comrade, we must borrow the international standards that in terms of the ILO Convention 154, Article 2, that is what gives us the right, comrade. And we know that South Africa is part of the ILO. Any decision that ILO take, South Africa must form part. And I heard, comrades, that the president of COSATU, comrade Zingiswa Losi, told us that in government, this right, the government of South Africa is working against it. Where there is an agreement, they take a different direction and not implement. But the danger of that, comrade, is that this will give capitalists, particularly employers in the mining industry, in construction and energy and metal, to say if your employer or your government can implement an agreement, who are we to implement a collective agreement? Because a collective agreement in terms of your government is not binding. So I'll tell you that we all know what COSATU's position is on that issue of the ILO Convention 154 of collective bargaining. The purpose of collective bargaining, comrade, is to determine conditions and terms of employment, regulating relations between the employers and the workers, and regulating relations between the employers and the organization, as worker organization and employers organizations. So can we go to page 7, comrade? In page 7, we are saying that in order for us, comrade, to negotiate, we must go to a process called collective bargaining, because a collective bargaining, comrade, is a process of negotiations. And that process is where we all know that we are determining conditions of employment. And in those conditions of employment, comrade, we are going to get the pay. And in terms of that pay, you have got a base pay, overtime, workers, hours of work, shift, holiday work, sick leaves, and vacation time, retirement benefits, and healthcare benefits. Can we go to page 7, comrade? Time is not this, page 8. It is the means and through which employers and their organization versus trade union engage each other to establish wages and conditions of employment. And that is what we call, comrade, collective bargaining. Can we go to slide 9? We are repeating, comrades, that the right to negotiate is enshrined in the ILO Constitution. And South Africa is a member state of the ILO. And that means, comrade, all employers that are trading in or making a business in South Africa by virtue of being in South Africa, they are bound by the ILO Convention on Collective Bargaining. And that is a fundamental right, comrade, of the workers. So we don't have to believe that we are creating problems for our own employers when we bargain. To bargain, comrade, is our right, and it's an international recognition that we are given that we must bargain. So, comrade, rights go along with responsibility. Whenever there is a right, it is intertwined with responsibility and responsibilities. And then that gives us, as a trade union, to then go to have a responsibility. And our responsibility, comrade, is to negotiate for our members. And the employer's responsibility, comrade President, is for us to negotiate with him and for him to give us an offer. That is the responsibility of an employer. And we have seen, comrades, that majority of the employers, they've already pronounced the 2020 financials. I did send the other one recently. That is pronounced now. As we speak, comrade, I was supposed to be in Exaro. The CEO of Exaro, she's pronouncing the financials, but I've circulated those financials, comrade. What we have observed in these financials, comrade, is that most of them, they are good, very good. But we know, comrade, the process is going to start after this collective bargaining, where we are going to negotiate. The financials in terms of the books is good, President. And what we are going to be told is not in the financial report, is what is outside of the financial report, what makes us to wear this mask. They are going to tell us about COVID-19, that because of COVID-19, this and that and this and that. But the question is, we must tell them that we are not negotiating for COVID. We are negotiating according to the financial report. The financial report says that we have made good surplus. Therefore, what we want is to share that surplus. So that must be what we are focused on, comrades. So can we go to page 11, comrades? In terms of page 11, comrade, we are raising an issue which says that freedom of association, comrade, goes hand in glove with collective bargaining. Because if we don't have the members, we don't have the right to negotiate for them. Therefore, that means, comrades, members must join us, and when we are the majority union, we will then negotiate for them. And that is under the freedom of association. They must associate with us, and in associating with us, they also enforcing us to protect their interests, President. It is an obligation that they have got the freedom to join us, and when they join us, they further then enforce us out of that freedom of association to negotiate for them. Can we go to page 12, comrades? And then the right to organize, comrades. I'm sure as we speak today, comrades, Carlton will speak a different language. An employer has created a union, and then after they themselves created a union in Brayfield, they then themselves sign a closed shop agreement, and then after signing the closed shop agreement, meaning that they force everybody to be a member of that union. A union that was created by the employer is even called a Brayfield. Can you hear the union called by the name of the employer? Yeah. So is that now when our workers don't want to join, they are on the streets, they are denied the right to organize, comrade, in terms of the ILO Convention again number 98 of 1949, when I was 1949, comrade, noted 1949, when I was 6 years.
I thought we
So, comrade, I'm sure you have noted, nobody will ask me about the age 1949 and when I was 6 years. And it was when they created this ILO Convention 98. Some of you, majority of you, were not with us. You have joined us later. And then can we continue the chairperson of women's structure? I heard comrade saying that I wish. Comrade, in advancing the interest of the workers, any organizer or negotiator who gets tempted to organize things for themselves with the employer, not for the members of NUM or workers, they resemble a betrayal of the freedom of association and the right to organize and collective bargaining and the conversion. This would simply mean class consciousness has dissipated. So if you comrades, you started to negotiate, and then at the other time you come and say, what is the budget? I can save you 1%, then we take 50-50. So that is not the spirit, comrades. That is not the spirit. And they are eroding these workers' global achievement rather than enforcing the freedom of the rights. Can we go to the other page? So reaching an agreement, comrade, it is a process of negotiations. When you engage and engage and engage, comrade Nike, the end result of that engagement must produce an agreement. And that agreement is called collective agreement. And that agreement is the agreement that must regulate conditions of employment between the union on behalf of the members and the employer. So the end results, comrade, must be an agreement. The end result can't be an agreement that is not written. So the agreement must be written, and that is the agreement that will have been engaging. Engaging in negotiation constructively, comrades. We believe, comrades, that give the workers a true reflection of the negotiation situation and get their support and the mandate. Don't, comrades, don't push your own agendas. Please, don't push your own agendas, because if you don't push the agenda of the workers, when you go there and tell the workers that, hey, comrades, we have got this percentage, either they will say that we agree if you rob them, or they say we don't agree. But sometimes they can come back and say, but we think this is not our mandate. Then whose mandate is this? So we plead, comrades, that during the wage negotiations, we need to push the agenda of the workers. Workers must be afforded enough opportunity and resources before commencement of the wage negotiations, and engage employers from an informed position, comrade. Do your research. That's why we have got a pre-bargaining workshops. Prior to the wage negotiations, comrade, make a research about the company. Know what they are giving other employees, particularly in the higher structures. Your management, how much they pay the dividends to the shareholders, how much are they paying bonuses of the CEO and the senior management. Make those research so that you use them as an argument. When you advance an argument and say, you can't deny to pay the workers a 10%, when you have paid 20% bonus to the senior management. And if you didn't research, comrade, you won't know. And you can't challenge them. They will tell you they don't have money. And you'll end up there because you didn't make your research. We plead, comrades, that when we go to the negotiation, let us do our research. Let us respect the agreement, comrades. I will take it that we must respect our agreements in order to expect the employer also to, page 15, comrades, to also respect the collective agreements. And then we must mitigate exploitation, comrades. There is a lot of exploitation, comrades. If you go to the conditions of employment, particularly in our sectors like construction, there is still a lot of exploitation. And we need to mitigate that exploitation during collective bargaining. It is our work and our responsibility, comrades, to really mitigate those exploitation. And then fight inequality, comrades. There is a lot of inequalities. We all know, comrades, that we are doing the same job, but we are not getting the same salaries. And we are empowered there. We never took the employers to court, comrade, President of COSATU. Despite COSATU fighting for us for equal pay, for equal work of equal value, we are failing as the unions to take the employer to court and prove him that he is not implementing that. COSATU has done his job, comrades. We are failing that because it is there. Wage inequalities is the same issue, comrades, and we need to work to fight the wage inequalities, declining trade union membership, comrades. We all know, comrades, that SNUM in 2012, we used to have 312 members. From there, Marikana came, we declined. As we speak, comrades, our membership is between 165, 156, let me qualify it, 156 and 165. As you know, comrade, membership fluctuates. In certain areas, comrade, we are losing, we are de-recognized. We are de-recognized on the basis of losing membership. For example, comrade, last week we signed an agreement at South Deep with WASA. So it is an agreement that must give us power to negotiate at South Deep for 2021. Alone, we don't qualify. Now you can see, comrades, that that is another issue that goes to the other clause that says this, comrade, goes to an issue where our gains are reversed, because immediately we get de-recognized. Many employers will erode those agreements because we don't have the power to defend those agreements. And the other issue is decentralization. Many of the employers now, they are going to a stage where they say we want to decentralize, we want to leave. We have seen here last year in code, comrade Lefty, comrades from the code, that myself, comrade Duncan, the GS, had to go to the code and deal with many of the mining houses during the wage negotiation because the code was decentralized. We still left with the gold, and as the coal has done it, the gold can do it anytime. So conference guidance, comrade, this conference must guide us at what posture should wage negotiation take in terms of centralization or decentralization approach, or should this depend on the balance of evidence? Because in terms of the forces, we may be weak due to loss of membership. President, here we are saying the challenge that we find ourselves in is the challenge that we are losing membership and we are de-recognized. And then we must take a view. Let me conclude, comrade, by saying we must mitigate the adverse effects of relations of exploitation, making research demands for better wages that are well thought out. Collective bargaining is a part of a class struggle, comrade. Workers, through good agreements, should claim more from surplus value acquired by the employer, and unions should recruit more members as there is power. As there is power in the numbers. There is power in the numbers. Collective bargaining is about the power in numbers. And let us use this information from the presentations that we will receive. I'm sure after me there will be 2 presentations, and those presentations will go to the details of the issues that I was talking about. It will take you as to what are the current situations in terms of increases, what are the economic scale today. Those 2 presentations, one from our own research, internally as NUM SATRI, the other one is an external because we wanted to balance it. So those 2 presentations, comrades, will give you a gist of where we are in terms of the wages. And let us be militant but be disciplined in our vision and conduct. Forward with the struggle of the working class, forward. Amanda!
Indeed. Indeed. Soweto.
Yes, union. Yes, union. Both.
Awethu amandla ngawethu.
Amandla Soweto. Comrades, Indeed, the acting general secretary has proven me, I myself, wrong in terms of saving time. Thank you very much. Nkabeja ka wena jwale. Nekiri go to tlonishisha. No, because beja ka wena. Comrades, I requested the acting general secretary to